Hello, I'm Stephen Overbury, and I am a full-time volunteer working endlessly on Otter Creek Animal Sanctuary and Shelter. The purpose of this video is to introduce the shelter and myself, and to make it abundantly clear that in order to survive and to carry on the kinds of activities that we're involved with, we need money. We need volunteer donations, basically, or we can't survive. Most activity in the so-called world of animal rescue revolves around humane societies, where half their budgets come from governments, the other half from highly paid, and I mean over $100,000 a year paid, fundraising gurus. We don't have any of that. As you can see around here in the ambiance, this is the library, the neatest part of the house in this abode that I spend my time in. We don't have that kind of funding. We have an unusual fundraising campaign on right now. I want to give you a little background to it. The actual articles that have been donated to our sanctuary and shelter are rather unique and incredibly culturally important for Canadians and Americans. As this is a worldwide video, it's not a local thing. I'm referring to the personal archives of a certain Dr. James Naismith, who happens to be a Canadian who grew up in an area not far from where I am right now, and who invented the sport of basketball. The collection includes his personal papers, mementos, and the like. It's the only comprehensive collection of his artifacts that he left behind when he died, the things that were dear to him, the photographs, like the first photograph of the first gym where his sport was played. Now, the evolution of the game and everything about it evolved from the geology of the Great Shield, of which I have the fortune of living in, and everything came from Canada, where I am now located. And James actually officially, pardon me while I move the cat out of the way, officially invented the sport while he was a student at a YMCA training school in Springfield, Massachusetts. It was a classroom exercise. He didn't know what he was doing would make history. But he's arguably our most famous Canadian ever. And the collection on my website is itemized under the fundraising tab. If you should go to Otter Creek Animal Sanctuary and Shelter.com, and you will see a study that cost our dear Canadian taxpayers almost $10,000. It was a commissioned study by the federal government, who had promised to pay me costs for the collection, even though I was offered 4 times as much, $1 million, to part with it, not once but several times. But silly me, I brought it to Canada from where I was living in Japan, thinking this was important, but as is often the case, the government pulled a fast one and tried to lowball me even after they had their proof of the value with this market value study by an independent worldwide organization who conferred that it was worth a lot more than they were getting it for. They still tried to lowball me and get me to donate it. So it was donated actually to the animal sanctuary that I work voluntarily at. And the fundraising efforts from that are going to go to a cow whose name is James Naismith. It's kind of bizarre. The whole thing with this sanctuary actually started after living in 20 years for Japan. In Japan, I had the bright idea, brain fart, to bring this collection to Canadians, and I found hostility in the local town of Almont, where he was raised. And while I was there, I was giving a tour of a dairy farm, and I would find this beautiful little calf. He was only 10 hours old, and he was chained up. He had been thrown into a corner, often the case on dairy farms. They're considered garbage males, and chained up. And when I inquired about this, I was told, well, that was a sandwich in 3 months. And I fell apart just thinking about this, because my previous life, I had been a journalist, and I had worked on a national documentary of abattoirs, slaughterhouses. And I remember quite painfully walking into it, the smells of death, the sounds of death, the dead cattle coming off the overcrowded truck where they were transported, which is the way things are done. They're all squeezed together. And then forcing them up a ramp with a prodder up the rear end, electric shock. And the animals knew what was going on. They didn't want to go forward. And then the stun gun, which is what we call a humane way of slaughtering animals, administered between their eyes. And they're hung upside down and put through an elevator. And when the carcass reached the bottom, our film crew was watching the eyes. The cows knew exactly what was going down. They were fully aware as their throats were being slit. These horrible images stayed with me for decades. And so when I saw that baby calf in this farm, this dairy farm in Elmont, it brought back memories, painful memories. And by that point, I wasn't eating meat, of course, but I wasn't collecting cows either. And on the spot, impulsively, not realizing how it would change my life, I bought this dear cow, whom I named James Naismith, because he would grow up in a temporary situation on a beef farm across the street from where James Naismith, the real person, grew up on. So the cow's name was James Naismith. If you'd like to see what he looked like when he was young, go to YouTube and type in the words Naismith Collection, and you'll see a cute little interview with the Ottawa Citizen, and you'll see how small and endearing he was. Fast forward, you want to see what he looks like today. He's arguably the largest cow in Canada today. He measures almost 7 feet tall, 3,500 pounds. My little baby. That large. And if you Google Stephen Overbury, and you'll come to endless CBC coverage. There's a 3-minute interview with a bright light called Stu Mills. More about him later, how he really radically altered my life for the worst with fake news. But there is an honest interview there. Visually, you can see the cow before and after. And why am I fundraising right now? Why do we need your money desperately? I say we because so many people are behind this that have helped me. I couldn't possibly do it alone. I do the lion's share of the 36 hours a day of work, of course, but I don't do it all. I don't do everything. There's so many people that have helped me every step of the way over these long 6 years of returning to Canada. But James, being the size he is, has feet problems. And typically, you put a cow in what's known as a foot chute. It's an apparatus that protects the person trimming the hoofs to make sure they don't get diseases of the foot, which could lead to diseases of the bone, which can kill the cow. And you don't want to go to that profession, that wallet-chasing profession known as the veterinarians of Canada, for many reasons, not least of which they'll suck you dry financially. They don't care about the outcome, basically. And finally, they put the animal to sleep. They don't take any chances on anything like a hoof trimmer would with that apparatus. So that's a different profession, hoof trimmers. And I had to reach out to the former president of the North American Hoof Trimmers Association, a fellow by the name of Jamie, who's a Canadian, nice guy, and we tried and tried to find somebody who had a machine large enough to contain James, and we couldn't. And the conclusion was we'd have to buy one either in the United States or Spain, and the cost in Canadian dollars would be over $100,000. All this on my initial investment of James of $100 for a sandwich. So it's an unusual, endearing story in a way, how this naive person, myself, with post-stress disorder issues, flashbacks, thinking of the abattoir and what it really means when we raise farm animals, and what that dear, innocent little calf was going to face if I didn't intervene on the spot. And that simple $100 purchase would change my entire life, of course, because you need things called, well, a farm, which I didn't have, and money to run a farm, and know-how, which I didn't have, and what they call a citiate. No skills at all in country living. You know, although I'm getting better, now that I live in a small town, I smile and I say, "How are you, bro? Hey?" when I see a fellow male there. Why? Well, you don't know if that's your brother or not in these parts. Who's your daddy? We don't know that in these parts, and he could be your brother. So I've learned a little bit about getting along that way, a little bit about country living in the Lanark part that I am now part of, and it's rather funny. But I struggle greatly with everything else. I can't lift my cow. I can't do his foot. And I'm at war with the veterinarian profession because of so many malpractice incidents and me telling them I'm taking them to court. Just saying that alone, they team up and nobody will help you. So I've had animals die in my situation that could have been saved thanks to very, how should I put it, non-caring animal people that just want to hurt you and your animals for the sake of a buck, for the sake of shutting you up and not allowing you to expose what's going on. Part of this website, should you decide to continue reading it or listening to me, will name names, incidents, if you're of the Eastern Ontario population and you want to know something about veterinarian medicine as it's practiced today, and you want real examples by somebody not afraid to give them to you, somebody who's had hundreds and hundreds of examples over the last 6 years and spent hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars learning the hard way, I will provide that for you as a service. There is an altruistic reason. I am hell-bent on raising money to carry on the kind of work I do here. I'm the real deal. And while we're at it, there are endless varieties of so-called shelters out there that have incredible, elaborate fundraising schemes. Some will tell you they're going to die tomorrow of cancer. I won't. Although I don't know. I've just gone for testing 2 days ago, mind you. Some will play up on your emotions. Some will have a WordPress, as I do, blog, and it will tell you who's following through on donations, and then you can change your storyline just to suit the audience. You can manipulate the information so one day you're rescuing kittens, but officially, suddenly, no, you're not. People want to see you rescuing older cats that nobody wants. So you switch. You won't find a switcheroo with me. Everything you hear from me comes straight from the heart. I don't butter it up. Unfortunately, I'm not very good at social etiquette. I tell it like it is. Gets me in a lot of trouble, but you can be the beneficiary of that. Now, if you truly care about all living creatures, farm animals, wildlife, and domestic animals, and you want insights into what the animal husbandry is all about and what sort of world it is, that I inhabit, to make a difference, the world a difference to those animals I have taken on and promised, not lightly, but with all my heart, to look after, whether they're sick, dying, or not. I will be there for them. Then I urge you to follow me. On the other hand, if you've grown up shooting cats and squirrels, you go out and you hunt for your own supper, and you think I'm an idiot, kindly fuck off and go away. Don't read this. Don't waste your time. It's not entertaining. It's painful to listen to alternative point of views. I'm not out here to change the world. I'm trying to connect with people who think, as I do, that there is a sanctity of life, even for human rats, I might add, that all living creatures of this planet deserve respect, and that we should embrace the sanctity of life. And if we get a pet, if that's what cranks your shaft because you can't get a relationship and you turn to animals instead as a supplement, that you're not after just the cute and cuddly Walt Disney kind of animals, that you'll consider an animal maybe that's not in great health, that might be somewhat of an inconvenience to you, but that you can make a difference by showing genuine love. More about these topics in future blogs and video recordings. I want to set the tone of what it is we do here. Any animal we take in for good. If we can find a compassionate home for an animal, we're more than happy to do that. When it's not the right home, we won't. For example, there's a little dog just a few days ago that was running on the highway. I could not believe it. I had my chauffeur, I don't drive, never have, stop the car, and at risk to all of us, I chased down the dog. But he was running away, and I knew better not to scare him. But he popped into an alley, into a house, and a car pulled in. And I asked the big burly man, "Is that your dog?" It was a beautiful designer small dog. He said, "Yeah, it is, stupid thing. Don't worry, we're putting him down next week, her down next week anyways. Damn thing. Always has an ear infection. We don't got money for this kind of trash." So I said, "Hold on there, pal. I'll take the dog. I run a shelter." "Yeah, I know who you are," he said. And the dog was transferred. So the first thing I did is I went to a vet, used a pseudonym. A lot of vets won't take me. They know if they screw up, if they're negligent, if they perform malpractice, I'll take them to task. They don't like that. They're gods around here, remember? They're allowed to make mistakes because they're perfect. So I brought the dog there, and this wonderful vet was treating two animals of mine. And when it got to this cute little dog, the vet told me how she was involved as a volunteer for a dog rescue, and her whole life revolved around dogs, and what a cute little dog. And I said, well, to be frank, I do want to find a home, so if you want to take a picture of this dog, please do, and put the person in touch with me. Well, those words meant that suddenly the examination came to an abrupt end, and she disappeared for almost an hour and a half. And she said, "I've got a perfect person for you." I said, "Really?" "Yeah." "She's a vet. She's a vet. You couldn't get better than that. And this little doggy, he's prone to needing operations on this parts of the body. She's a specialist in that. And she's looking actively right now. We can take your dog right now." Well, she disappeared again. The whole thing took an hour and a half, and I went out, kind of suspicious, to the front desk. I said, "Look, your vet's all hyper and excited. Is she trying to reach this vet that she says wants the dog, and she's going to try to do a deal right now on the spot as I brought him in for treatment?" And the front desk said, "Yeah, but if you're not grateful for this, well, we'll stop." Wow, talk about pressure. The vet comes back in and tells me that this vet's going to take her running every day. We're forgetting the fact that I've pointed out the dog is 9 years old. He has an ear infection, which they can't put a stethoscope in his ear because he's in such pain. He can't be treated for most drugs out there because it could rupture, or it could make him go deaf if he's ruptured his eardrum. And we want to go about it slow and easy and figure out what's wrong with the dog. And certainly the dog has never been running, and it's 9 years old, and it's stressed out. And this lady's telling me that this vet knows best. She's going to take it kayaking and running, and it's a perfect fit. And I'd thank my lucky stars if I don't sign over the dog immediately. And I said to her, look, I'm concerned if something's wrong with the dog and a lot of money's required to fix that, then perhaps the vet is going to say, well, it's time that we put you down. And they'll euthanize the dog. I don't want that to happen. I want the dog returned to me. And then the vet said, well, my sister's a lawyer, you know, and we tried that before, but you can't do it. It's personal property. Once you give up the dog, that's it. Now, do you want to give it up? You'll give it up to me, and I'll meet the vet and give it to the vet. And I said, no, thank you. I want to meet the vet directly, and I want to go through a screening process. I want to see the home. I want to meet the vet. I want to see that this is a good fit, because that's who I am. I don't want to recklessly abandon the animal to some yahoo who's going to take it running when it's an older dog. Give it a heart attack at that. So I'm thoughtful about who it is that this dog should go to, this beautiful purebred dog. And hearing the words, you can't get any better, she's a vet, and she runs. Wow. There's so much of that in this industry. It's absolutely deplorable how we use animals, marginalize their lives, and pat ourselves on the back of what great citizens we are. Well, none of that goes on here. A lot of places won't let you meet the animals, won't let you actually come and see the operation. They'll make a million excuses. It may be they don't have any animals there. They're just fundraising and they're fostering. That's the word. I know of cases where locals will buy animals with all their shots and rabies shots and neutered for $40 from kill shelters in Quebec, then stick them in a cafe in Ottawa and charge you $250, make a tiny profit, do absolutely nothing, and pretend that they are the greatest thing on earth for animals. We don't do any of that here. But here we're facing a situation with a cow that requires a lot of money to make sure that he lives a full and rich life. We have another cow up and coming that we just acquired. His name is James Brown. He's a dancing cow, and I think he's going to be bigger than James Naismith, but that's just a hunch. He's a beautiful, beautiful 1-year-old boy. He still has his horns, and this time I'll let him keep his horns. Such a friendly cow. You really have to come and take a peek. Where are we with all this? This is an introduction of what you might find on this website that might be of benefit to you. If you're a local person, you'll get a lot of information about shelters, about the politics of animal care and what really goes on and where your money's really going if you're donating it without really probing. I have a background as an investigative journalist with front page stories in the Globe and Mail where I once worked. I worked for Marketplace at CBC and for Live It Up at CTV, both national affairs, award-winning, long-running consumer affairs shows. I'm a best-selling author with McGraw-Hill of a hard-hitting book on how you go out and get sensitive information in print for 25 years. And if you Google me, you'll get all kinds of baloney as well. And you'll find out why I look a little haggard and why my living room happens to be the nicest looking room in my house right now, why things are kind of upside down. I'll share a little secret with you. I dared to try to move on and find a family who cared as I do for animal husbandry. I took out a simple ad on Kijiji. I also made a fatal mistake. I trusted Stu Mills, that human interest storyteller. You know, the kind of guy you can't help but love because he tells these cutesy, warm stories. And he agreed, you know, to give me some control over the story. that he was doing about how I was trying to find a family to take over. And he did a brilliant job on the interview and on the follow-up radio interviews. Everything was fine. What I didn't know the same day, that fateful day in my life, April the 8th, is that they recklessly, on their Facebook page, came up with a banner. He's giving away $1 million historical waterfront on the Rideau Canal System UNESCO Heritage Site. This wonderful farm for free. Click here to find out why. And the result of that, of course, is my story, Stu's story, was the 5th most widely watched show that year on the CBC. And I got over 50 million hits worldwide. Even today, mid-August, as I'm taping this, I still have got emails from friends. Hey, I want the farm. You're giving it away for free. I'm the guy. I kid you not. They put that there. And in their story, buried in paragraph 7, they actually dared to say, well, we didn't mean he's giving it away. He's just not charging you rent. But by then, the thing had gone viral with the Weather Network and everybody else. Everybody but Stephen Overbury did not pick up on that. And so the 40,000 detailed, written applications, resumes, lies in effect, philosophical essays, the hundreds, if not thousands, of personal interviews in between in my spare time when I'm working 36 hours a day looking after hundreds of animals, some of which are sick and dying. In between all that, I would screen. Some people lived with me. I would be robbed blindly of all my tools on the farm. I couldn't figure out why it was I wasn't successful in this campaign and why I couldn't exercise my visa to return to Japan and my one-way ticket until I found out that the CBC had created what's known as false news with that banner to get the ratings up. They lied, in effect, at my expense. And they refused follow-up interviews, which I tried many times to explain some of the humorous episodes, like a cult out of Oakville that had me hook, line, and sinker in 2 weeks, mesmerized me, almost had my entire deed in writing. They were so good. I missed them. Their work ethic, single women, incredible single mothers, all under the control of one Mrs. Charles Manson. Brilliant. I believe that the term is delusional disorder. It's a very rare disorder, but very powerful, and those charismatic leaders that are head of the cults are something you don't mess around with. But I almost got taken. But back to the point, the CBC took me hook, line, and sinker. They hijacked my life. And I aged, couldn't sleep and eat properly, and I've gone through hell. I'm still, daydreaming that one day I will find a family that cares as much as I do about animals and won't kill anything, whether it be a lowly rat. That will really test your resolve of how much you care about all living creatures. A fox, a raccoon, farm animals like a cow. Instead of saying, I love you, James Naismith, you look delicious. Instead, I respect you, you beautiful cow. You are a majestic creature. I will not let that poison that got in Stephen Overbury's head when he went to visit and film an abattoir bring me down. I will make a difference to you. I won't change the world, but I'll make a world of difference for you and those that are in the situation here at Otter Creek Animal Sanctuary and Farm. This is not a rehearsed speech, ladies and gentlemen. This is me at the end of the day, and I'm appealing to vegan-like people throughout the world to take a good hard look at this website, some of which is still going to be for free, the initial thoughts, but the detailed interactions I've had with the animals, the real skinny on the underbelly of this cesspool called veterinarian medicine, the pharmaceuticals to boot, the whole unregulated, totally getting away with murder movement called animal shelters that exist from top to bottom of North America in every small town and city. I want to really expose what goes on these institutions so you get a good hard look at the underbelly, what sort of people are involved in this that you think you're making a difference by sending your money to. You'll think twice. You'll never see things the same again once you click onto my website. But you will have to pay for it, because I am going to devote time this time for the cause of looking after these animals. I'm not a bank, and I've exhausted everything I own and more to make a difference for these animals. And if you care as much as I do, and you can't come and help me physically do the work, then perhaps you can send money by way of a donation to a PayPal account. I won't set up a charity for you or a fancy not-for-profit and pretend that that legitimatizes me. It doesn't. If you'd like to see my bank account, my credit card statements, and see how every single penny goes into the animal care, bar none, no secret bank accounts, I'll open this up to you if you're going to be a donor of substance on an ongoing basis. I have nothing to hide, absolutely nothing. And thank you for listening this far. Bless you. For those who want to carry on, do so. And for those who are just curious, please go away. This wasn't for you.